Excretory system. When the body oxidizes nutrients, some of the products that result are waste. Excretion is the process by which the body gets rid of this waste. Some waste come from proteins. Proteins are broken down into amino acids. These in turn are also broken down, and the nitrogen-containing parts are released as waste in the form of urea and uric acid. Kidneys are a pair of bean-shaped brown organs about the size of your fist. It measures 10 to 12 centimeters long. They are covered by the renal capsule, which is a tough capsule of fibrous connective tissue. Adhering to the surface of each kidney is 2 layers of fat to help cushion them. There's a concave side of the kidney that has a depression where a renal artery enters, and a renal vein and the ureter exit the kidney. The kidneys are located at the rear wall of the abdominal cavity just above the waistline and are protected by the rib cage. There are 3 major regions of the kidney: the renal cortex, renal medulla, and the renal pelvis. The outer granulated layer is the renal cortex. The cortex stretches down in between a radially striated inner layer. The inner radially striated layer is the renal medulla. This contains pyramid-shaped tissues called the renal pyramid, separated by renal columns. The ureters are continuous with the renal pelvis and is the very center of the kidney. Renal vein. The renal veins are veins that drain the kidney. They connect the kidney to the inferior vena cava. Because the inferior vena cava is on the right half of the body, the left renal vein is generally the longer of the two. Unlike the right renal vein, the left renal vein often receives the left testicular vein in males or left ovarian vein in females. Renal arteries. The renal arteries normally arise off the abdominal aorta and supply the kidneys with blood. The arterial supply of the kidneys are variable and there may be one or more renal arteries supplying each kidney. The renal arteries carry a large portion of the total blood flow to the kidneys. Up to a third of the total cardiac output can pass through the renal arteries to be filtered by the kidneys. Ureters. The ureters are 2 tubes that drain urine from the kidneys to the bladder. Each ureter is a muscular tube about 10 inches or 25 centimeters long. Urethra. The urethra is a muscular tube that connects the bladder with the outside of the body. The function of the urethra is to remove urine from the body. Because the urethra is so much shorter in a woman, it makes it much easier for a woman to get harmful bacteria in her bladder. This is commonly called a bladder infection or a UTI. The most common bacteria of a UTI is E. coli from the large intestines that have been excreted in fecal matter.
The urethral sphincter is a collective name for the muscles used to control the flow of urine from the urine than females, meaning that they can retain a large amount of urine for twice as long as much as 800 ml. Nephrons. A nephron is the basic structural and functional unit of the kidney. The name nephron comes from the Greek word nephros, meaning kidney. Its chief function is to regulate water and soluble substances by filtering the blood, reabsorbing what is needed, and excreting the rest as urine. Nephrons eliminate wastes from the body, regulate blood volume and pressure, control levels of electrolytes and metabolites, and regulate blood pH. Its functions are vital to life and are regulated by the endocrine system by hormones such as antidiuretic hormone, aldosterone, and parathyroid hormone. Each nephron has its own supply of blood from two capillary regions from the renal artery. Each nephron is composed of an initial filtering component, the renal corpuscle, and a tubule specialized for reabsorption and secretion, the renal tubule. The renal corpuscle filters out large solutes from the blood, delivering water and small solutes to the renal tubule for modification. Glomerulus. The glomerulus is a capillary tuft that receives its blood supply from an afferent arteriole of the renal circulation. The glomerular blood pressure provides the driving force for fluid and solutes to be filtered out of the blood and into the space made by Bowman's capsule. The remainder of the blood not filtered into the glomerulus passes into the narrower efferent arteriole. It then moves into the vasca recta, which are collecting capillaries intertwined with the convoluted tubules through the interstitial space, where the reabsorbed substances will also enter. This then combines with efferent venules from the other nephrons into the renal vein and rejoins with the main bloodstream. Afferent and efferent arterioles. The afferent arteriole supplies blood to the glomerulus. A group of specialized cells known as juxtaglomerular cells are located around the afferent arteriole, where it enters the renal corpuscle. The efferent arteriole drains the glomerulus. Between the two arterioles lie specialized cells called the macula densa. The juxtaglomerular cells and the macula densa collectively form the juxtaglomerular apparatus. It is in the juxtaglomerular apparatus cells that the enzyme renin is formed and stored. Loop of the nephron or loop of HENLE. The loop of HENLE, sometimes known as the nephron loop, is a U-shaped tube that consists of a descending and ascending limb. It begins in the cortex receiving filtrate from the proximal convoluted tubule, extends into the medulla, and then returns to the cortex to empty into the distal convoluted tubule. Its primary role is to concentrate the salt in the interstitium, the tissue surrounding the loop.
Ascending limb. Unlike the descending limb, the ascending limb of Henle's loop is impermeable to water. The ascending limb actively pumps sodium out of the filtrate, generating the hypertonic interstitium that drives countercurrent exchange. In passing through the ascending limb, the filtrate grows hypotonic since it has lost much of its sodium content. This hypotonic filtrate is passed to the distal convoluted tubule in the renal cortex. Distal convoluted tubule. The distal convoluted tubule is similar to the proximal convoluted tubule in structure and function. Cells lining the tubule have numerous mitochondria, enabling active transport to take place by the energy supplied by the ATP. Much of the ion transport taking the place in the distal convoluted tubule is is regulated by the endocrine system. In the presence of parathyroid hormone, the distal convoluted tubule reabsorbs more calcium and excretes more phosphate. When aldosterone is present, more sodium is reabsorbed and more potassium excreted. In addition, the tubule also secretes hydrogen and ammonium to regulate pH. After traveling the length of the distal convoluted tubule, only 3% of water remains, and the remaining salt content is negligible. 97.9% of the water in the glomerular filtrate enters the convoluted tubules and collecting ducts by osmosis. Collecting ducts. Each distal convoluted tubule delivers its filtrate to a system of collecting ducts, the first segment of which is the connecting tubule. The collecting duct system begins in the renal cortex and extends deep into the medulla. As the urine travels down the collecting duct system, it passes by the medullary interstitium, which has a high sodium concentration as a result of the loop of Henle's countercurrent multiplier system. Though the collecting duct is normally impermeable to water, it becomes permeable in the presence of antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. As much as 3/4 of the water from urine can be reabsorbed as it leaves the collecting duct by osmosis. The levels of ADH determine whether the urine will be concentrated or dilute. Dehydration results in an increase of ADH, while water sufficiency results in low ADH, allowing for diluted urine. Lower portions of the collecting duct are also permeable to urea, allowing some of it to enter the medulla of the kidney, thus maintaining its high iron concentration, which is very important for the nephron. Urine leaves the medullary collecting ducts through the renal papilla, emptying into the renal calyces, the renal pelvis, and finally into the bladder via the ureter. Renal hormones. Renal hormone secretes the following. First, vitamin D becomes metabolically active in the kidneys. Patients with renal disease have symptoms of disturbed calcium and phosphate balance. Second, erythropoietin, released by the kidneys in response to decreased tissue oxygen levels, or hypoxia. Third, natriuretic hormone, released from the cardiocyte granules located in the right atria of the heart in response to increased atrial stretch. It inhibits ADH secretions that can contribute to the loss of sodium and water. Urinary system physiology. One of the major functions of the urinary system is the process of excretion. Excretion is the process of eliminating from an organism waste products of metabolism and other materials that are no use. The urinary system maintains an appropriate fluid volume by regulating the amount of water that is excreted in the urine. Other aspects of its function include regulating the concentrations of various electrolytes in the body fluids and maintaining normal pH of the blood. Several body organs carry out excretion, but the kidneys are the most important excretory organ. The primary function of the kidneys is to maintain a stable internal environment for optimal cell and tissue metabolism. They do this by separating urea, mineral salts, toxins, and other waste products from the blood. They also do the job of conserving water, salts, and other electrolytes. At least one of the kidney must function properly for life to be maintained. 6 important roles of the kidneys are regulation of plasma ionic composition. Ions such as sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chloride, bicarbonate, and phosphate are regulated by the amount that the kidneys excretes. Regulation of plasma osmolarity. The kidneys regulate osmolarity because they have direct control over how many ions and how much water a person excretes. Regulation of plasma volume. Your kidneys are so important that they even have an effect on your blood pressure. The kidneys control plasma volume by controlling how much water a person excretes. The plasma volume has a direct effect on the blood volume. which has a direct effect on your blood pressure. Salt will cause osmosis to happen, diffusion of water into the blood. Regulation of plasma hydrogen ion concentration, or the pH. The kidneys partner up with the lungs and they together control the pH. The kidneys have a major role because they control the amount of bicarbonate excreted or held onto. The kidneys maintain the blood pH mainly because excreting hydrogen ions and reabsorbing bicarbonate ions as needed. Removal of metabolic waste products and foreign substances from the plasma. One of the most important things the kidneys excrete is nitrogenous waste. As the liver breaks down amino acids, it also releases ammonia. The liver then quickly combines that ammonia with carbon dioxide, creating urea, which is the primary nitrogenous end product of metabolism in humans. The liver turns the ammonia into urea because it is much less toxic. We can also excrete some ammonia, creatinine, and uric acid. The creatinine comes from the metabolic breakdown of creatinine phosphate. Uric acid comes from the breakdown of nucleotides. Secretion of hormones. The endocrine system has assistance from the kidneys when releasing hormones. Renin is released by the kidneys. Renin leads to the secretion of aldosterone, which is released from the adrenal cortex. Aldosterone promotes the kidneys to reabsorb the sodium ions. The kidneys also secretes erythropoietin when the blood doesn't have the capacity to carry oxygen. Erythropoietin stimulates red blood cell production. The vitamin D from the skin is also activated with help from the kidneys. Calcium absorption from the digestive tract is promoted by vitamin D. Kidney stones. Kidney stones are hard, solid particles that form in the urinary tract. In many cases, the stones are very small and can pass out of the body without any problems. However, if a stone, even a small one, blocks the flow of urine, excruciating pain may result and prompt medical treatment may be needed. Urine is formed in the kidneys. The kidneys filter out fluids and waste from the body, producing urine. As the urine passes through the kidneys, it becomes more concentrated. From the kidneys, urine flows through the thin tubes called ureters into the bladder. The bladder's stretched walls expands to store the incoming urine until it leaves the body through a tube called the urethra. Supersaturation of hormones. When the urine becomes supersaturated with one or more crystal-forming substances, a seed crystal may form through the process of nucleation. Heterogeneous nucleation, or where the solid surface present on which a crystal can grow, proceeds more rapidly than homogeneous nucleation, or where a crystal must grow in liquid medium with no such surface, because it requires less energy. Adhering to cells on that surface of a urinal papilla, a seed crystal can grow and aggregate into an organized mass, depending on the chemical composition of the crystal. The stones forming process may proceed more rapidly when the urine pH is unusually high or low.
Inhibitors of stone formation. Normal urine contains chelating agents, such as citrate, that inhibit the nucleation, growth, and aggregation of calcium-containing crystals. Kidney stones often result from a combination of factors. Stones are more common in people whose diet is very high in animal protein or who do not consume enough water or calcium. They can result from underlying metabolic conditions such as distal renal tubular acidosis, dense disease, hyperthyroidism, primary hypersoluria, or medullary sponge kidney. In fact, studies show about 3% to 20% of people who form kidney stones have medullary sponge kidney. Kidney stones are also more common in people with Crohn's disease. People with recurrent kidney stones are often screened for these disorders. This is typically done with a 24-hour urine collection that is chemically analyzed for deficiencies and excesses that promote stone formation. What causes kidney stones? The leading cause of kidney stones is a lack of water. Stones commonly have been found in those that drink less than their recommended 8 to 10 glasses of water a day. When there is not enough water to dilute the uric acid, the pH level within the kidney drops and becomes more acidic. An excessively acidic environment in the kidney is conducive to the formation of kidney stones. At the same time, Your urine may lack substances that keeps crystals from sticking together, creating an ideal environment for kidney stones to form. A number of different medical conditions can lead to an increased risk of developing kidney stones. Gout results in chronically increased amount of uric acid in the blood and urine and can lead to the formation of uric acid stones. Hypercalciuria, or high calcium in urine. In this condition, too much calcium is absorbed from food and excreted into the urine, where it may form calcium phosphate or calcium oxalate stones. Chronic diseases, such as diabetes and high blood pressure, are also associated with an increased risk of developing kidney stones. Dietary factors and practices may increase the risk of stone formation in susceptible individuals. In particular, inadequate fluid intake predisposes to dehydration, which is a major risk of factors for stone formation. Other dietary practices that may increase an individual's risk for forming kidney stones include a high take of animal protein, a high salt diet, excessive sugar consumption, excessive vitamin D supplementation, and possible excessive intake of oxalate-containing foods such as spinach. Interestingly, low levels of dietary calcium intake may alter the calcium oxalate balance and result in the increased excretion of oxalate and propensity to form oxalate stones. Prevention for kidney stones. Drink water throughout the day. Choose a diet low in salt and animal protein. Reduce the amount of salt you eat and choose non-animal protein sources, such as legumes. Continue eating calcium-rich foods. Get magnesium into your diet. A deficiency of magnesium has been linked to the production of kidney stones. Magnesium keeps calcium from combining with oxalate and producing one of the most common types of kidney stone. Stay away from sugar, soda, and corn syrup. Sugar disrupts the body's ability to absorb calcium and magnesium, making it a culprit in the formation of kidney stones. Exercise. Exercise for 30 minutes every day. Jogging, biking, or other cardiovascular exercise will keep your bones from losing excess calcium, which they do when you're not getting enough activity. Treatment for kidney stones. Drinking water. Drinking as much as 2 to 3 quarts a day may help flush out your urinary system. Pain relievers. Passing a small stone can cause some discomfort. Shockwave therapy. Shockwave of energy are used from outside from the body to break stones into pieces that can be passed out of the body with the urine. Percutaneous nephrolithotomy. Small cut is made in your back and a thin telescopic tube is passed into your kidney. The stone is either removed or broken into small pieces using a laser. Ureteroscopy. This is made if the kidney stone is stuck in the ureter. A thin telescopic tube is passed through the urethra and bladder to the ureter. Stone is either removed or broken into pieces with a laser.